All right, welcome back to Getting Sober, again. My name is Jay, and today we're gonna talk about ending our relationship with alcohol. But first, if you care about your own sobriety journey as much as we do, we have hundreds of videos on the topics of sobriety and self-improvement. So make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. All right, let's get started. So first and foremost, I wanna remind you that just like it takes time to start a relationship, it also takes time to end a relationship. So don't be so hard on yourself while you're attempting to end your relationship with alcohol. It's gonna take some time. Regardless if things were good, bad, or maybe even horrible, alcohol is your way to maybe distress or unwind or relax or even let loose. At times, alcohol is probably your best friend too, right? Alcohol could have been your shoulder to cry on, or maybe your own version of therapy. Alcohol could have been your crutch and your training wheels and your way of taking the anxiety of dealing with people, places, things, events, and certain activities that would have otherwise caused you some sort of social fear or anxiety. But just like we can be in a healthy relationship or a relationship of coexistence or cohabitation or codependency, we can also be in a toxic relationship. So let's talk about our relationship with alcohol as we would a toxic relationship. Now think about that for a moment. Every single one of us knows what it's like to be in a toxic relationship. And for those of you that maybe need a quick refresher on what a toxic relationship looks and maybe even feels like, let's very quickly go over 15 signs of a toxic relationship. And I want you to pay attention to how many of these signs also apply to how you acted or behaved while intoxicated. So here's 15 signs of a toxic relationship: physical, verbal, or emotional abuse, controlling behavior, disrespectful behavior, frequent arguments or fighting, gaslighting, lack of trust, lack of support, unpredictability, manipulation, blaming other people, lying, financial abuse, constant stress, neglect, isolation, and the relationship makes you feel worse about yourself. I'm going to say that last one again. The relationship makes you feel worse about yourself. Isn't a good relationship or a healthy relationship supposed to make you feel better about yourself? Now, we talk about the phrase energy vampire quite often. Energy vampires are those people that we know who, after you hang out with them, it feels like the life's been drained out of your body. And a toxic relationship doesn't have to be a romantic one. It could be one with a friend or maybe a family member or a coworker, or the relationship that you have with your boss. An ideal relationship offers support and growth, and you should look forward to spending time with that person. And most of all, you know that there's a possibility that your life is going to be better when the two of you are together. There's a vibration and a harmony between the both of you that allows you to resonate at an ideal frequency, aka good vibes. But when you're in a toxic relationship, you never feel good about yourself, do you? You feel crazy and angry and depressed and stuck, and you wonder if they feel as strongly about you as you feel about them. And mostly, you're constantly wondering if things are ever going to get better and if the relationship's even going anywhere. And on top of that, you know that you're sacrificing your alone time just to cure your loneliness. When you're in a toxic relationship, you sacrifice your mental health, maybe for the sake of raising kids together, to maybe pay a mortgage together. And in some toxic relationships, you use and abuse together, or even worse, you use and abuse each other. You make bad decisions together, and you enable instead of empowering one another. One of the things that all bad relationships have in common is that when you don't feel like you're in control of a relationship, you maybe have no idea how to end it. How many of us have that friend that we knew was bad for us, and maybe they were too pushy and we didn't really exactly know how to say no, or we didn't feel comfortable with saying no? How many of us have been in a romantic relationship? We've heard them say, or maybe we were the ones to say that, this is the last time, I swear, I promise I'll change and I'll never do that again. But then just a few weeks later, or maybe even a few days later, the same thing happens again. And then you're hoping that your trust that things will change goes out the window too. And not just your trust for them not being able to change, but also too for your own trust that you won't do anything about it. We all know what it's like to feel trapped and to feel stuck and to maybe feel scared and to feel like we have no control over the outcome, which, by the way, is the root of anxiety. And that's why today's topic is ending your relationship with alcohol, because for most of us, it causes initial anxiety. And that's why I always talk about treating alcohol like your toxic ex. Your toxic ex that you're no longer attracted to, with the breath and the belly that smells like old cigarettes on a rainy day. That toxic ex that hurts you mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and financially. That toxic ex that embarrassed you in public and in front of your family and in front of your coworkers, or maybe even in front of your kids. That toxic ex that would never give and would always take. That toxic ex that robbed you of your money, of your youth, of your time, and your health. The toxic ex that took the best days from you and made you feel like you're just an old, tired, washed up shell of your former self that nobody could possibly want. The toxic ex that made you feel like the only way that you could have a good time is by spending it exclusively with them. That toxic ex that made you question your own sanity, that made you feel more anxiety than excitement, that made you feel more depressed than loved, that made you feel like you were worth less than you actually are. That same toxic ex that conditioned you into codependency. Now, does that sound familiar? So let me ask you a question. Isn't that how your relationship with alcohol made you feel? Didn't you feel codependent on alcohol? Wasn't alcohol always your best friend or your date or your plus one when you went to parties? Didn't you always gravitate to places where you knew that alcohol would be? Because after all, you were never really alone if there was a bottle of wine or a bottle of whiskey, right? It didn't matter how bad life got or how sad or how mad you wound up being, because after a few drinks, you weren't going to care about your life decisions or if anybody approved of what you did or what you said, right? You weren't going to care if your partner thought less of you or if your kids stopped respecting you, if your job was about to fire you, if your bank was about to overdraft you, if your doctor was about to diagnose you, because in a few drinks from now, alcohol was going to take the pain away. Now, let me ask you another question. Does that sound like a healthy relationship or a toxic relationship? So when I call it a relationship, you understand full well the spell that alcohol cast on you to make you do and say things that you didn't mean, things that you'll regret and be ashamed of in just a few hours, if you remember, that is. You know you're not your best self when you're intoxicated, and if you were taking bets on which version of you was your best, that being you sober versus you intoxicated, you know damn well that you'd put your money on the sober version of you. And if you were your own best friend, which, by the way, is one of the goals of sobriety, to be your own best friend, wouldn't you tell yourself to break up with alcohol? We all know what it's like to have that one friend who's in a terrible and abusive relationship, and every time you see that person, all they ever talk about is how bad things are with you know who. And it's painfully obvious to everyone except for that person that things need to end now. But why did they hang on to that toxic relationship? Why did you hang on to that toxic relationship? The simple answer is fear. The simple fear of not immediately knowing how to adapt to your new life. And yes, your evenings are gonna change. And yes, you're gonna think that life is boring because you might be boring if all you did for the last decade is get drunk on your couch. Some of your friends are still gonna choose to be in a relationship with alcohol, and yes, it's gonna be too painful at first to wanna see those friends have fun with your old mistress alcohol, but that's part of the process. Learning how to be alone with yourself and to like yourself and to want to spend time with yourself is all part of the process. Learning how to exist in the world without being intoxicated is also part of the process. Figuring out what places to hang out at instead of the bar, and learning how to more appropriately sort through your feelings on your own and experiencing life while being present and clear-headed is all part of the process. And like we talked about earlier, learning how to be your own best friend, learning to love yourself, to value yourself, and to show gratitude for all that you have, even if it's not much at all at the moment, is all part of the process. And so too is increasing the value of your self-worth, to stop selling yourself short and to stop giving yourself away, to stop poisoning yourself and to stop giving other people and alcohol power and control over how you feel about you. And a great way to start regaining control over your life is to start setting personal boundaries. We actually have a video on that exact topic called 20 Ways to Set Personal Boundaries. Learning how to say no, learning how to protect your time, your freedom, and your mental health. And to stop letting those energy vampires continue to suck the life out of you. And if you want to watch that video next, click on the link in the top corner of the screen, but I'll also put a link in the video description in case you forget or maybe want to watch it later. You already know that you and alcohol are terrible for one another. You know that you can't just have a few, you know you can't just drink on the weekends. And if the thought upsets you of not being able to drink, well, guess what? That's exactly how people feel about cocaine, heroin, meth, and pills. Just because you can buy alcohol at the grocery store and CVS doesn't make it better or okay. You should never sacrifice one night of fun to end up hating yourself the entire next day or the whole next week or the next month, year, or the whole next decade of your life. So if you're ready to break up with alcohol, I want you to comment down below and say, I'm ready to break up with alcohol. And with that being said, what do you think of today's video? Tell us what you think by leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to show your support for everybody here in this sobriety community by giving this video a thumbs up. But if you're ready to binge watch another one of our amazing videos, click the link in the top corner of the screen. And with that, I want to wish you good luck on your self-improvement journey, and I will see you in the next video.
If you want to see another one of our videos, click here.